Hi everyone, it's Clyde at Vibrant Soap, and today I'm going to do another one of my artist inspired by soaps. And it occurred to me, even though a lot of people sent me lots of ideas for the next artist to be inspired by, and there's many, so it's very hard to make my mind up, is that I looked around my soap room and I found some old soap scrapings that I used to trim, and I usually save them up to make another confetti soap. And it's just about that time that I have enough to do that. So I thought this is perfect because I can do a soap inspired by Antoni Gaudí, who is primarily known to be an architect, but a great artist. He was really a visionary and did things so contrary to other things going on at his time. So I'll show you a couple pictures of his most famous building, which is the La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, and I went there last year. All these curvy forms, and they're very organic, and they carried over to his park called Parc Güell. And this park is amazing. You can walk through. It's like walking through an artist's vision. Lots of curves to it and a lot of mosaic. And so the mosaic is what gives me sort of permission to use the confetti in the soap. It looks a lot like mosaic and bits of colored tile within the soap. Of course, it's all soap. And I'll show you pictures also of the soap that I made to cut up angular pieces. I only ended up using some of my soap shavings because I realized that I needed some angular forms for this. So I chopped up the soap, and well, I'll show you the making of this right after a color tutorial. Okay, so let's get going on this. Try to make this a quick color tutorial. Just a little bit more about Parc Güell in Barcelona. It's a beautiful park. It's rather large scale project that Gaudi got into. It took about 15 years or so to complete, and there are mosaics and there are curvy structures just about everywhere. Beautiful. If you ever get to Barcelona to go see that magnificent park. And there's a lot of mathematics involved with his architecture too, some of it from the Fibonacci sequence. So he took nature cues in developing his architecture, and so that explains the Fibonacci sequence that sort of explains a lot of the curvature that you see in nature and in his architecture. He was very innovative. So the first color I'm putting down is like a coral orange. I made it into a bit of a pastel. Pardon the yappy dog next door. She's upset, I think, because she's all by herself. But we'll just kind of ignore her for the time being. So I'm going to have this reddish orange pastel. It's not going to seem very pastel because it's going to be put in a base of white. And then I'm also going to have more of a different kind of orange. More of a pure pastel orange. And I look very carefully at the tiles set in the stone structures of this park of Gaudi's, and notice that there is, instead of looking at what colors were involved with it, I really had decided that what colors were absent, and there weren't many purples and there weren't very many pinks. So I saw oranges, nice royal blue. So I didn't really even think about the color wheel on this. There's really no need to. If I took the cues from Gaudi's Parc Güell. So those were the embed colors that I made, and this was more of a turquoise-like green, so I'm going to put a little bit of blue in there. Some white, something like that. So there's two warm colors, two cool colors. And then I'm also going to pour some yellow soap in there. So I'm going to show you that by the use of a squiggle. So the orange, the red, orange, green, and blue were made into blocks of cold process soap the day before I put this whole thing together to use as embeds, but the yellow was actually soap that I poured, and that kind of stands out the most. So I think I did add a little bit of purple in my embeds. The embeds are already made, and it's more of a pastel-like purple. And just a little touch of that. So this is so all over the place, all over the color wheel. I'm not even going to bring that out. It's just a real big mix of colors there, which makes it very festive looking, as you'll see. And the last thing I'm going to do is crown the whole soap with black made from activated charcoal. So I really have been wanting to do a charcoal soap. And within the black pour, that's also going to be fresh soap that I layer on top. I'm going to have some light colored soap shreds also, so that I add a little bit of dimension. The idea was to form a curved top surface because Parc Güell has a lot of those surfaces that are really curved. It's hard to find straight lines in Gaudi's work, but straight lines did play a part in its structure, but they were repeating lines of, I guess I can just say that they were coordinated lines that would end up forming curvatures in the architecture when the whole project was done. So there's the color tutorial, which is basically not a tutorial, it's just the colors I'm going to be using in this soap. And let's get on with the soap making. So these are my cold process embeds that I'm going to unmold, and I still have to cut them out, and they smell great. This is scented with lemon verbena, and I picked out colors after careful thought of how they were going to be used in this Gaudi soap. So it's a little tricky because I have embeds within these embeds because I want them to look like the aggregate tiles that Gaudi used, particularly in Parc Güell in Barcelona. It's an amazing park. We wanted to stay there all day long last year. So artists who have a very angular or random-like style in their work are the easiest so far to do these inspired by soaps. So let me get these all out and I'll show you how I will chop them up for my embeds. I know that I'm going to be using a variety of sizes for this, but that's going to happen when I trim these the way that I want to. They're going to be little polyhedrons, just many-sided shapes, because when I cut into these embeds, when it's inside the soap, I want the basic shapes to be like little triangles. And as you know, it would be very difficult to line these all up so that they are perfect triangles. But there is a shape that I can cut these into that will help me get those shapes that I want. Alright, so the first thing I did was I cut about this length. I want about the width of a pinky. So then I'm just going to start cutting these up in angles. You can see that I have white and red embeds in this to give the look of tile. Okay, so now that they're in pieces like this, I'm going to cut them like that, about that size, just turning it about, sort of like cutting carrots for stew, if you've ever done it this way. So you just rotate, cut off at the same angle. I like to do it that way because I don't have to think about every single cut, especially when I've got so many to do. Okay, so I chopped up all my embeds. I want them just to be angular. A lot of them are triangles. So I've got 4 different colors. Got this turquoise light green, a lime green there. I didn't need as much of that one. And I've got some blue, and if you can see, there's some embeds within these. And I tried to make them embeds of contrasting color so it would stand out. So the blue has orange in it, the orange has blue in it. And then I took this, some sort of pastry cutter. I inherited these, and I made these little stars. So we'll see if this works out. This was a spontaneous idea that I had, and some triangles and some blue triangles to use a little differently. And let's get started with the soap making. Okay, I'm going to blend my oils and clay before I add my lye. Soaping it again at about 80 degrees. And here goes my lye solution. I'm going to be using a lot of titanium dioxide today, so I want the soap batter to stay fairly liquid at the very beginning. I'm going to pour about 4 batches of soap separately so that I can incorporate the titanium dioxide in 4 batches, blending it only when I need it. Since I'm going to be blending in the color later, I'm going to just stir in my lemon verbena fragrance. First thing I'm going to pour is my little bit of yellow, just so I get that out of the way. Not much of that. A little bit more. Not going to blend that yet. And then most of this is going to be in 4ths. And I'm going to be making a double batch. I'm taking into account the fact that I have a lot of cold process embeds that are going to fill up the mold. So hopefully I planned this right. Okay, so starting with the bottom layer, I'm going to add a little bit of titanium dioxide, and I want it to thicken enough to hold my embeds. And the first thing that is going in is my turquoise embeds. In they go. And I'm going to pour half of this in this mold. I wish I had more space so I can show you things a little bit better. And half is going to go in this one. Now it can set up a little bit. That looks about even. I'll bring you back when that's set up a little bit. Okay, so it's it's setting up, and as I was testing it, I'm trying to make these little troughs. So I'm making one just away from the edge on this side closest to me. Do the same on this one. And I'm trying to make a mound about right here. So I'm going to gather this one right from the edge over here. You can see it's starting to set up. But I don't want those ridges, so I'm going to run my spoon down there to smooth that out. The rest of my soap is still pretty liquid, so I can take my time. I'm tempted to just rush and pour right over this, but I really want these mounds to be there, because in Gaudi's park they were pretty rounded, so I want the mounds to really show up. So probably from this angle you could see the mounds a little bit better than straight down on it. Looks like it's holding its shape pretty well, so I'm going to get my next bit of color ready. That's the yellow. See, it's still very liquid, so I'm going to really blend that a lot so that it thickens up. Yeah, that's thicker. And this is my smallest amount for a pour in its level. So I'm going to combine the green, stir that well so I don't get any air pockets. Well, what I want to do is make a mound right on this far side from me. And I want to taper that down this way. Make sure I have enough for this other one. Okay, so far so good. I got the yellow in there. And I want a little trough on the side touching the mold. Okay, so I think this one's solidified enough that I can get the next layer on. And that's going to be some more titanium dioxide in this one. Oh, good. It's setting up a little bit better so I don't have to wait as long. Get this next one ready, just so they're a little more thick. And I have some more soap that I can beat in with my titanium dioxide. So I'll get a finer bit that looks like a sandy layer. Titanium dioxide. Spread that evenly here. So my blue embeds, gonna gather them to one side. Trying to shape this. All I did was I combined some white soap batter with my blue embeds. My space is smaller than you might expect, so doing a complicated soap that has so many moving parts and to still have room for the camera and me is a bit tricky sometimes, but I'm not complaining. I just want to make the best videos I can for you. Okay. Now I'm ready for these orange pieces. Okay, I'm almost done. Boy, did I plan a complex soap or what? So I made these little triangular cold process embeds, and I want to place them pretty close to my 1-inch marks so that they have a hope of appearing in the cut. Now I've got orange ones that I'll put on this side. Well, if you're going to do anything like this, you better make sure that you have a fragrance and recipe that's going to let you work for a while. And then my green stars are going to go right between. Just when you thought I was done, I've got to add my black. So I hope this is gonna, oh yeah, it's still gonna work. And I shredded some cold process soap and I dusted it with gold mica, and I'm going to stir that in. Looks like real gold. And luckily, it's liquid enough for me to pour over this. Okay, let's cut this Gaudi inspired soap. Cut off the end first. And I waited a couple of days just to make sure that this was cured well. I put little marks on the top of that so I know exactly where to cut this, since I have those embeds in there. And there's my different color embeds. Still looking for my other embeds that are hiding in there somewhere. It'll be a nice surprise when they show up. So I wanted the idea of tiles in this one. Oh, there's one of the embeds. There's a star on top. That's what I wanted to show up. Pretty tricky. Next time I'll make those embeds a little wider. But they'll show up when you use it. I'm glad I made that one layer a little bit off-white because it makes the layers stand out differently. That's part of a star. So that's the cutting of my Gaudi inspired soap. Thanks for watching, and I love your comments, and got some other artist inspired soaps coming up too. And check out my Instagram. And until next time, this is Clyde, and I'll see you later. Bye.